yourselves. So I would assume that everybody here is in that Master's in Communication program. I know Skylar's not. So therefore my assumption is no good. If you wouldn't mind going around the room, tell me your full name, where you're from, and which program you're in. Okay? So I'm Michael Alexander. I'm in my 9th year as president of Lasell College. I majored in History and Literature of America, and I did my graduate work in education. But I studied organizations, and I've taught primarily, the areas I've taught in are primarily writing, creative writing, leadership, and organizational communication. So with that, would you like to start?
Yeah, my name is Tama. I'm from Saudi Arabia. I'm doing my master's in IMC.
Great.
My name is Ahmed. I'm from Saudi Arabia. I'm doing my master's in public relations.
Hello, my name is Mohammed Kadim from Saudi Arabia with my master in PR and IMC.
Great.
Hi, I'm Julala Pesha-Timikorn. I'm from Thailand. I'm doing my master in IMC and public relations.
Hi, I'm Skylar Beckerman. I'm doing my undergraduate in sports communication and my minor in business, and I'm from Pensacola, Florida.
Hi, I'm Callie LeBlanc. I'm from Laconia, New Hampshire, and I'm doing my undergraduate in sport communications.
Hi, I'm Taylor Ranson. I'm from Gorham, Maine, and I'm doing my undergrad in sport communication and PR.
I'm Renato Silva from Bethune, Mass. The IMC program.
Great.
I'm Adrienne Franciosi. I'm the Director of Graduate Enrollment here at the college, but I'm taking COM 702 Organizational Communication.
I'm Savannah Medicine. I'm from Providence and I'm in the IMC program.
Great.
I'm Rahaf Baghdadi from Saudi Arabia and I'm here for IMC.
Nathan Dodwajat, Communication Program graduate.
Great.
Dana Janbek, Communication faculty member.
Michael Laramie, also a communication faculty member from the Boston area.
Thank you for joining us. So I thought we'd try and have a little fun today. We're going to talk about organizational communication, learn just some of the basic principles and concepts that relate to both problems in organizational communication and what makes for effective organizational communication. So I thought we might start by talking a little bit about this minor little case study I put in front of you. So if you wouldn't mind taking a look at that, it should only take you a couple minutes to read it, and then talk about how, if you were me, if you were the president of a college or university faced with this problem, what would you do? It's obviously a crisis situation. What are you in? So I'd just like to hear what do people think about how you would handle this situation. Okay, so you're faced with this situation. You're in your office. You just learned about this situation. Feels like problems are coming at you from all directions all of a sudden. What's the first thing you do?
Accept the problem.
So, okay, accept the problem. What does that mean?
How to deal with it. This damage possible.
So what action do you take? Okay, you recognize you have a problem. So recognize you have a problem. So that's right. So, but what action do you take?
Maybe try to figure out every angle that's happening, everything that's going on in the situation.
With that, you think you have time to do that?
Probably not.
Yes.
Deal with the crisis in front of you first. Go out and speak with the 7 African American students outside. Get their story, get their side of what's happening. After that, I would speak to the students whose rooms have the news tied to them. And then I would gather my staff, come up with a game plan, and put that in place. And then I would speak with the newspaper, tell them what happened, what you did, and what your game plan is to fix it.
Okay, I don't know. Can everybody hear that? You hear that down at this end?
Yeah.
Would you mind repeating what you said and say it louder? It was very good.
Sure. Hi, but
Let me stand down here so I can test whether I'm loud enough or not.
I just said you deal with the crisis in front of you first. So I would go outside and meet with the 7 African American students first, get their side of the story, see what they want. But then I would go meet two students who had the news tied to their doors, get their side of the story. Then I would meet with my staff, come up with a game plan to both address what happened and prevent it from happening in the future. Put that into place, and then once that happened, I would meet with the newspaper and give them the story about what happened, what you're doing about it, and how you plan on preventing that from happening in the future.
Okay, so there's a step-by-step approach. Okay, what's wrong with that approach, or what could go wrong with that approach?
Time limitation.
Time limitation, right? It could take too long. So what's the problem with it taking too long?
People can create stories and put them in the media before you use it.
In the media, yes, or other places too, like in the community also, right? The rumor mill can get away from you, can get worse and worse, right? It can get out of hand. So how would you deal with the time problem? Because that might take a while. You go out and meet with those 7 students, you could get stuck there, right? That could take a while right then. In the meantime, the crisis is rolling, it's getting worse.
You can talk to the
I'm not
media.
saying that that's wrong, but yeah.
You can take to the media, talk to the media first, but if you want to find out what's happening, they'll look for you in the answer.
The media's going to ask you a lot of questions, right? But you don't have the answers to.
You go to the ones you have the answer, do a press conference or something.
So you had your first thought. What's your name again?
Renato.
Your first thought was to meet with the 7 students. But what was your second one? Was meet with the students who had the news on there. And what was your third thought?
Get the staff.
Get the staff together. Okay. Might it make some more sense to get the staff together first? Because then you don't have to do it, because you probably can't take every step yourself, right? If you try and take every step yourself, all those steps would make sense, okay? All those sound like good things to do. But if you try and take all those steps yourself, it's going to take you too long, right? And you have to inform the staff anyway, right? You need them to know as quickly as possible. So might it make more sense to do that step first, and then allocate the jobs, so then you could send the one who knows about how to handle the press off to handle the press, and you get your act together so everybody knows what you're going to tell the press, and so you're all on the same page, right? You can find out more information about the situation. You can task somebody with, first of all, get those nooses off the door, right? Make sure they're gone. First of all, you want to get them down as quickly as possible. So whether that's somebody on the staff, or you call, say, your police department to get somebody over there to get it down first, to get the sore spot removed. So you have to kind of delegate, right? So in other words, now how can your staff, what does your staff need to have in order to be able to help you? Okay, information, right? Information. So and how are they going to get that information? You're going to have to tell them, right? So the key in that is for them to be sufficiently informed to go do those various tasks, right? So the first step is, and the fastest thing is to collect information and disseminate information as fast as you can to a broad number enough of people that you trust to be able to deal with all these simultaneous issues at the same time, and do it in a coordinated fashion. Right? So you have to think about how can I communicate most quickly but accurately without doing things that are inaccurate. All right? And so that's kind of the way it would go. So and then after you take those initial steps, you can go back and then start clicking through your list. Okay? So what you've done there is, what we talk about are some of the basic steps of how to communicate in an organization. In this case, in a situation where where timing is crucial. Now I submit, in most cases, the timing is crucial. It may not be as immediate as that. You know, it may be crucial for you to get a message out in a day or a week. But a lot of times if your message isn't out quickly enough, then it could be a problem. All right? So, an axiom of organizations is that no organization stays the same. Organizations are always changing. They have to change. Right? Because if they don't change, they can't get better. Organizations aren't getting better, they're getting worse. So no organization stays the same. So this leader's job is to cause change. And the tool that one uses to cause change is primarily communication. Right? When you think about how else would you stir things up? How often would you initiate new projects or ideas? How often would how else can you motivate people to do things differently, to be innovative, unless it's through communication? So it's kind of the crucial tool that any leader uses to foster change in an organization, which I submit you could argue is the primary goal, primary responsibility of leaders to foster change. Now it should be positive change, right? You want to do it in a certain way, and you want to do it in a way that doesn't create more problems than it causes. So let's think about an organization and how communication happens within an organization, right? So we've talked, in our little example there, we've talked about it a little bit. If I just draw a typical organization, there are many different ways organizations can be organized or structured, but I'll just use the kind of standard, what we're used to seeing, hierarchical approach to an organization. Kind of how a typical organization might be, you know, think of different positions with a leader and various teams that work and must be coordinated. So if you think about what's the primary way that a leader makes sure that people are positioned to be effective in an organization. Think about communication. What's the first thing he does?
Give orders.
Pardon me?
Give orders. Or
Tell people what's going on, right? So communicating to people, right, through the organization. If I want the people I work with to be effective, they need to have as much valuable, correct, accurate information as possible. For them to be able to go and make accurate judgments. When they get out there in that dormitory situation where the nooses are and you're trying to get them to take them down, they're going to face people who are upset, they're going to have people asking questions, and they're going to have to make decisions on the spot. So the more information they have, the more they've been informed about what the position is and are on the same page with everybody else, the more capable they are of making decisions on the spot and not making a mistake. Okay? So the first function of communication is communication down through the organization. If the people I work with want to be effective, my job is to put them in a position to use their expertise and their experience to the best of their ability. That means I have to give them the resources they need, the moral support, the training, and the information, the data, to be as open as possible with all information so that they can make decisions on their own. That's how this is more effective. So that requires communicating, change the color here. Communicating down through an organization, trying to hold people responsible for, if you're telling these people who work with you, you want them to tell their people and on and so forth, so that everybody in the organization has as much information as possible so they all can be as effective. So that's the first type of organization, kind of top down. That's the kind you're used to. You said giving orders. You're hearing, giving orders. Someone telling somebody what to do, or just telling them what the facts are. giving them information, giving them budgets to work with. Okay, that's communicate that. So that's the first type or principle of organizational communication. What would the second type be?
The opposite way?
The opposite way, right. What would you call that? Give me some words for that. What'd you say? Feedback. What did you say?
I said bottom to top.
Yeah, bottom to top. Feedback. So the second time is to get information from down here, the people who are closest to the customers or to the students or to the audience, to get them to communicate. Oh, I should change the color again, right? To communicate back up through the organization. What we call, some people call feedback loops. Also known as listening, right? Good leaders are good listeners, right? So that's getting the information back. This is feed communication down through the organization helps your people be effective in what they do. Feedback up through the organization helps you be effective, helps the organization be effective, and helps the organization improve. Because what's the nature of this feedback? It's, okay, what's working, what's not working, what are the customers asking for that we haven't heard about or we don't know about or that we're not fulfilling the needs of the customers? How can we improve? So this pattern comes down, back up. What happens when it gets, this information gets back up to the top, then what happens next?
New decisions goes down.
They send it back down through. So what good is it to learn about what's going on if you then don't share that information again? So then it becomes circular, right? So you get this pattern going down, getting feedback back, you learn from that and send it down. And that constitutes what we call organizational learning. The organization itself. Organization is what? It's a group of people, right? The group of people is starting to learn and develop and become more effective by this constant looping of information. Okay? So organization down, believe it or not, is kind of basic. It's what we're used to. It's not as easy as it sounds to make sure that everybody knows everything. I can tell you I try all the time to make sure my people know as much as possible, almost everything about the organization, other than things that are personal to an individual, like their pay, their health, their family situations, which that to me that's private. But other than those things that are obviously private, I see no reason why anything else within the organization shouldn't be open and transparent. Because the more people know, the more effective they can be. But it's not that easy, especially in a complex organization. It's even harder to get the feedback loops going. Okay, there you'll see organizations, companies, colleges use different mechanisms to do that. Some of those mechanisms can be formal, such as suggestion boxes or focus groups, surveys, that kind of thing. Or they can be informal, training people to ask and pass information back, to actually listen to the rumor mill and the grapevine, which is a source of feedback information which people sometimes forget to learn. And even though you have to filter it for what's correct and what's not, it is actually the fastest form of feedback. Okay? So it's something you should listen to. But developing feedback is even harder than the top down. Okay? But it's necessary. To be a good organization, you've got to be constantly learning, getting that feedback, taking action, informing people, taking action, learning from those actions, whether they're mistakes or failures or successes, so that you can grow and develop as an organization. So if those are the first two, what would be the third type of organization, communication within an organization?
In the same level,
Pardon me?
In the same level? Yeah.
Right, so communication across the organization. So the problem with, the drawback, the limitation of top down and bottom back up is that it creates bottlenecks in the information. It tends to get stuck at the top. Okay, I got all this information flowing to me and I know I gotta send it back down, but I gotta process it, make decisions, send it back down. You know, maybe I don't hear it all, maybe it doesn't all get to me, or even if it does, it takes me time to process it, and then maybe I forget to communicate it again, or whatever. It could get stuck here, at least for a period of time. But if you have an organization that can start talking across, sharing information like this, that can be much quicker. Okay? In a highly competitive world that we live in, where companies compete with each other, where margins sometimes are small, where the world is constantly changing, the environment around us is changing, so we have to adapt quickly. The more quickly an organization can make good and accurate decisions, the more successful it will be. I'm not saying to do this instead of the other two, I'm saying in addition. So when you can get all three types of communication flowing and working, that's when an organization is really humming. It's really operating on all cylinders. Now I said that the second type was harder than the third type, but then the first type, well, the third type is really hard. Okay, because people tend to live and think of themselves in their own divisions, in their own areas. Leaders like myself are constantly fighting against that. Constantly trying to get people to talk to each other, getting people to work across. And it's not a natural thing for them to do. These people tend to be in the same physical location with each other, and these people are in a different location, right? So you have just the geographical barriers. You have the fact that these people will hold their own staff meetings, and these will hold their own staff meetings, but not very often do they meet together, unless you arrange some way for it to happen. Some people try and actually develop different structures than the hierarchical structure just for this reason. For instance, I ran a company once, another one, where it was very difficult to get people talking. We were having a hard time getting people talking across and sharing information across. So I took the organization chart and tore it up in front of everybody. This company had 350 people in it, and designed a organization that looked almost like the Olympic rings. Okay, so there were teams of people that had different areas of responsibility, kind of like this, although defined in more interdisciplinary fashion. But they were overlapping teams in a very flat structure, not much hierarchy to it at all. People working together, less of what, not with bosses not as well defined. Multiple people responsible for getting jobs and actions done. So I'm not saying this is better or worse. It's just only a specialized situation, I think, where this works, because people are normally more comfortable with this. But it does do something to facilitate cross-organizational communication. Questions about anything else we've talked about so far?
Do you think people felt more empowered when you introduced that second way of working?
I actually don't know in all situations. In the situation where I tried it, the answer was yes. Well, let's say more people felt more empowered. But these people in this position who had been reporting to me temporarily felt less empowered and threatened by it until they got used to it. They resisted it, they didn't like the idea. or, I mean, that's a generalization, some disliked it more than others, but they were uncomfortable with it. And they felt, they certainly didn't feel more empowered. These people felt more empowered. But it got the decision-making and the discussions about what to do with the organizational learning that you get from the customers and from the audience. In this case, it was a broadcasting company, so audience ratings mattered. So understanding the audience was you had to understand the audience, you had to understand the advertisers. So kind of two sets of customers. And so it brought the people who dealt with the advertisers and the people who dealt with the audience closer to the locus of decision making. So I think not only they felt more empowered, they were more empowered. But that doesn't mean it would work in every case.
So you had talked about listening to rumors as one way to get feedback. So my question
I said the grapevine, I didn't say rumors.
Grapevine?
It's, I know that they overlap, but
I'm actually not sure what the difference is. But so I guess my question is, sometimes, how do you sift through all that data to figure out what's real and what's perception? Because sometimes you might have someone in your group who is a very loud person and who may make things appear to be larger than they
So
are.
the question is, if you're listening to the grapevine, I think the rumors and grapevine overlap, but rumors are by their definition not reliably valid. Grapevine, that's not necessarily true. Grapevine, there can actually be a lot of true things coming through the grapevine. Some that you would even know that are true by their nature or because you already know that. So, or some that you can easily validate. But the question is, if you're listening to informal sources of feedback information, how do you know whether to believe it? Isn't that what you're asking? So, what do you think? What's the answer to that question? You can challenge, I mean, you can obviously challenge what I said. I said you should listen to the grapevine. Not everybody agrees with that, for the reasons you said. It would be like believing everything that came across the internet, right? We know better than to do that, right? We know better than that, yes,
Well,
Adrian?
it depends what I hear, but what I choose to do is, if for some reason it's something that would be on my radar, I go right to the source of who would have the accurate information. And I, ask.
Yeah.
I was just going to say the most reliable sources.
So you go to validate it, right? So I think that's what you do. If you hear something that sounds, well, that would, if that's true, that would really matter, then I think you go quickly try to validate it. Or disconfirm it. Either one. And a lot of times that's not that difficult to do. Sometimes it is, and that's tougher. And then I would be reluctant to act on it.
Right.
In that case, if I wasn't sure. Okay. Other questions? So you think you got the three basic types of communication? Now in our little case study, if you notice, we only talked about it a few minutes, but we actually talked about top-down communication, right? We said first, get the information to your staff so that they're in a position to take action, to make decisions to help you. So it's not all stuck on you, because that would take too long for you to do everything yourself. So that's top-down. That's helping people be empowered to help solve this crisis and deal with it, right? We also talked about finding out what the facts were, right? Finding out what the 7 students wanted and what their position was. Finding out about the people who were directly affected by the nooses being on their wall, or maybe other people who were upset or felt injured by that fact. Finding out what the mood of the community is as a result of this. Finding out what the media wants or is tempted to say. So getting feedback, right? So we talked about those 2 types. In our example, what might be an example of cross communication? Remember, this is a time critical crisis.
offices on campus?
Pardon me?
Between different directors of offices on campus?
Well, a simple way would be that the people, if this is what you mean, the people that you had informed and charged and sent out there to do different jobs, rather than just reporting back to you, getting them to report to each other. Or finding a way, through some kind of communication device, through just telling them before you dispatch them out into the field, make sure you keep each other informed, and think about who else needs to know this now because of what they're doing. That would be an informal method. A formal method might be if you had a listserv, or you're broadcasting an email to all of them, or have a text method to keep everybody up to date on each step that's happening. Because that would allow people to react and be up to date more quickly. If it's all sent back to me and then I have to communicate it out to them and who knows where they are, that will take longer. It won't be as efficient, won't be as effective, because as we said, time matters. Okay? So the objective with all this is to see how good you can get at it. Meaning how good the organization can get at it. Remember, an organization is just a group of people who are working together towards a common purpose. But how can you get them working effectively, most effectively? And it's not just about speed, it's about accuracy, right? You want the information to be as accurate as possible. Because I've noticed that in my experience, I've noticed that almost all problems in an organization, if you really trace them back and figure out what turn out to be communication problems. You can probably think of counterexamples if you think really hard. But in real life, when I actually deal with problems and I think, oh, what went wrong here? And then you go analyze it, 90% of the time, easily, it's a communication problem. Okay? So, there are a couple of different types of communication errors that get you in trouble. So what would those be? How would you make a mistake? How would you cause a problem? How would a communication situation cause a problem? Yeah.
I was going to say assumptions.
That's a good one. Assuming something that you don't know, or taking something at face value that haven't gotten validated. Yeah.
Or just like not getting all the information from all different angles before reporting on something.
Okay. Yes?
I think miscommunication can cause a problem.
Miscommunication. So being inaccurate. So telling somebody something is incorrect. Right? Right, so that's basic. That's kind of the most common and the most obvious error would be simply I'm telling my people something that's wrong. And then they're acting or making decisions on that, and it causes a problem. Okay? That's what I would call an error of commission. Committing the error. I'm doing something that's incorrect. That's a mistake. That mistake has consequences. Okay, so that's one kind of. Yeah. Now, I've learned that's frequently not so bad. Okay, why would that be?
Easily correctable.
Why is it easily correctable?
If you have misinformation, you can correct the information. Make a statement about how you overlooked it, and now you're reconsidering.
Right. So it's easily, you can correct it. So that is right. So there's an interim step there. Somebody tells you it's wrong. You find, or you notice the consequence. Oops. If you're paying attention and you make a mistake, an error of commission, it'll cause a repercussion. And somebody will say, what did you say that for? Or what are you talking about? Or you'll see the mistake happen, the effect of it, you'll say, oh no, what I do wrong, and you realize, oh, that was incorrect information. People will help you correct an error of commission. They're there. I mean, they're going to be affected by it. They're going to hear it. They're going to feel it. So they tend to help you. And by the way, if they're afraid of you, it's bad, because then they might not tell you even though they know. But you want to encourage your people in your organization to tell you. Not just the president, but anybody on there. you want everybody you work with to be encouraged and be positively reinforced to correct you if you make an error of communication. But as I said, because it's an error of commission, because it's an error of something you're doing, it's visible and it's active, it's easily corrected and noticeable. And therefore, with experience, you can really limit those. So, for instance, I've been running organizations for 35 years now, and I think I've got it down to, I don't make very many errors of commission. I'm not saying zero. Everybody makes errors. But I've been able to get it to the point where, because of experience and knowing, and I make very few of those. The problem is there's another kind of error which is much more insidious. And what would that be?
Would it be misunderstanding the message?
Pardon me?
Misunderstanding.
Misunderstanding, that is I guess if the person doesn't understand what you're saying, or people don't understand what you're saying, yeah, that's a communication problem, and there people can go off and make a mistake. You could say, that means maybe you didn't explain it carefully enough, and therefore it's an error of commission. So it's one of those that we already talked about. So what would be the opposite kind of error? Yes.
Oh, I was going to say no communication at all.
No communication at all. Okay. Or a failure to communicate. Right, what's the famous line from Cool Hand Luke? Right. What we have here is a failure to communicate. So, or what I would call an error of omission. Right. That is, you didn't communicate what you needed or should have communicated. Now, as I said, this is a much more insidious kind of error. Why is that? Maybe besides Adrian? Okay, Adrian?
I think it affects trust.
Affects trust?
Significantly.
Why else?
Someone may not correct.
Someone may not correct you?
No one can correct you.
They can't correct you. Right? Because how do they know what you haven't communicated if you haven't communicated it? Right? There's another aspect to it that's similar to that. I don't know that I haven't done it. Right? If I knew that I hadn't done it, I would do it. So it's very hard to recognize errors of omission. Very hard to recognize it because they aren't something, they are the absence of something. Right? They're the null set. So, if you are in an organization and you care about how effective it is, you understand that effectiveness in an organization has a lot to do with communication, it behooves you to be vigilant about errors of omission. And I can tell you it's really hard. Remember I told you I got to where I've been able to pretty much eliminate errors of commission, make very few. I can't say that about errors of omission. First of all, I don't know what I haven't omitted. But when there are problems, or when I see something go wrong, or I realize there's a mistake and I analyze it, so many times it turns out to be an error of omission in communication that I or somebody else should have done, should have been responsible for. Ultimately, I should have been responsible for. And I've had it's very difficult. And so it's something that I'm constantly reminding myself about, reminding my people about. How do we think, what more do we need to communicate? What did we forget to communicate? What did we intend to communicate but we didn't? What are the other things that people need to know that we haven't told them yet, or haven't shared with them? Right? And in any complex organization, and this qualifies as a complex organization, so does this. There are many opportunities for errors of omission. For errors of commission too, but as I said, they're almost self-correcting. If you're your people are vigilant at all, they're self-correcting. And errors of omission are not self-correcting. Okay? So anybody have any questions or comments about that? Errors of commission are primarily the responsibility of the communicator. If I tell you something wrong or something right, no, that's my responsibility. I either did it right or I did it wrong. Errors of omission are the responsibility of both parties. Because it actually could be, you know something that I forgot to tell you, or you say, well, what about that thing we talked about last week? What happened with that? Or what are we doing in this area? What's our strategy for sales this week? Where do we stand in our budgets? How much money is left? You might recognize that you're missing information, and therefore it is responsibility for you to ask. So the responsibility for errors of omission are shared by everybody. So that an organization is most effective if you can get people to recognize that fact and take shared responsibility for it. So you're constantly asking each other questions and not getting upset when somebody asks you a question. Even if you think you've already told them, even if you think the answer is obvious, even if it's just a reminder, don't get upset about it. Okay? Because it's actually a good function. It actually helps to grease the wheels. It actually oils the machinery of communication within an organization, to constantly be communicating and asking, to making sure that things aren't falling between the cracks, that there isn't information that should be communicated that isn't. It is not wise to assume because somebody hasn't told you something that it's because they intended not to tell you. Did you get that? Yeah, that was like double or triple negative. So if you're missing information, it's not necessarily the case that I intended to withhold it from you. I might have just forgotten. I might have just failed to tell you for whatever reason. I might have been sick that day. I might have thought I told you but didn't. I can't tell you how many times I've done that. I thought to tell, so I got to tell Dan about this exciting new thing we're going on, and then I'm thinking about that in the car on the way to work. I get to work, I get caught up in other things. I thought about it so much, I actually thought I told her, but I didn't tell her. So that's happened all too many times. But if she came and asked me, what about that project we were thinking about? Oh yeah. Okay, so you need all that. That's teamwork, right? That's teamwork, and when you put it in organizational context, it's teamwork on steroids. So when you can get that going, along with communication, effective, correct, frequent communication down through an organization, feedback loops, bringing the organization back up, and circulating it like a convection oven, right? Like a boiling pot of water, down and back up. And then also communicating across so that you're really fast and people really know what's going on. And you have people trained to give each other feedback when people make errors of commission, who communicate something that's inaccurate, the easy part, and they look out for errors of omission and help each other overcome and prevent those. That's when you have an organization that really is hard to beat. Okay? So that's pretty much what I intended to cover today. So does anybody have any questions or anything else they'd like to talk about? Does this make sense to you? Is it all helpful? Yeah.
Can I ask you, so you've served in 3 different types of industries, correct? In the media industry, technology, and academia.
Right.
And thinking about the differences in organizational communication, because I think each industry has its unique strengths and weaknesses, and within that, the specific organizations you worked with, I'm sure, have their own strengths and weaknesses. So thinking about these differences, are there like notable trends?
Well, I'm afraid my answer might be disappointing to you because my view of that is that they're not very different. Okay, they haven't been different, especially on the things that we've been talking about. Now you can say, well, wait a minute, why did you organize one entirely differently? And I don't think that's because any of these factors that we're talking about are different. It's because that the silos in that organization, I took over an existing television station, and the silos were very entrenched. And it was very hard to get people to talk to each other outside of their own departments. And that was causing problem. That was inhibiting growth. Okay? And I was still kind of young and not nearly as experienced as I am now. But I got tired of it. You know, I was getting frustrated, so I literally burned the organization table. Like I said, if I see any organization tables, you know, in this company in the future, you know, you're going to be fired. I didn't really mean that, but no organization tables. I don't want to see one. I don't want to hear about one. We're going to operate as teams, overlapping sets of teams, and it was specifically to break down those silos that were so rigid in that particular case. I don't think that was industry specific, although I guess it could have been. That the broadcasting industry did have very strong traditions. There were others. For instance, the broadcast industry was had the tradition of the 3 martini lunch back then. And this is a while ago. This is not true anymore. But all salespeople went out with their customers, the advertising people, for lunch and drank alcohol every day. And every afternoon they were useless. All business was done between 8 a.m. and noon, and no business was done after that. And so that was a very strong tradition. It wasn't just at my company. It wasn't my company that was going on. In this company I took over, right? I came in and assumed leadership of an existing organization, and that was a very strong tradition. And so when I tried to stop it, there was resistance. Well, we'll lose business because, you know, our customers are used to doing this. They expect us to take it out to lunch and pay for their drinks, and also we develop these close relationships, and it's those relationships that get us all the business. And I said, I don't care. There'll be no more drinking at lunch. Next time anybody comes back to work after lunch drunk or inebriated, they're going to be fired, right? And because that's just not acceptable. So what do you think happened? No, they didn't stop going to lunch. But they didn't come back. They didn't come back to the office inebriated. But what do you think happened to the business? Remember, these are people very experienced, very talented people, made a lot of money. Broadcasting salespeople make a lot of money. They said this is going to hurt. Our business is going to go down. We're not going to be able to compete. Yeah, what do you think happened?
Did they get less motivated? No?
Nope. Nope, that's not what happened.
The business went up.
Yeah, why?
They did more, work more.
Yeah, exactly. Very simple. You got a whole day's work out of them instead of a half day's work. The business doubled in no time. The station that hadn't been able to grow its revenues in years, overnight, the revenues doubled. Now, I'm not saying that was the only reason, but that was one of the reasons. So, that was a company. Now, I'm not saying this, maybe it's an industry thing. I never thought about it, but it was that company. That company was not a well-functioning company. It was the bottom station in the market, New York City. Right. It was the worst station market in its whole history. Okay, and so it wasn't competitive with their competitors. That back then, cable was still new. There were basically in New York City there were basically 6 television stations, 4 network owned and operated stations. Fox was new, but it was there. And 2 independent stations pretty much dominated all the viewers, and our station was the 6th in the market, and it was because of it's because of things like that, and there are other reasons. I had to improve the product on air and like that too, and create a new image for it. So there were a number of things, but when you double the revenues overnight, increase the cash flow several times, well, it was no longer the bottom station of the market. In fact, it became soon, within 3 years, was the number 2 station in the market being 3 network owned, and it was an independent station being 3 network owned and operated stations. Almost an unheard of thing. So maybe those others were still doing it. They weren't still doing the 3 martini lunch. I know that for sure. So maybe that was a factor. But I also think this was a factor. So there were many factors, but this was a factor too, because it required more communication. So sales and programming typically didn't talk to each other. Okay? Sales always wanted to do programming. They say, if we had better programming, we'd be able to sell it better. You don't put the right programs on. And so programming would say, there's nothing wrong with our programming. Look at this programming. We only have so much of a budget to buy programming anyway, and you just don't sell it well enough. So when he did this, and then he physically made the head of sales and programming sit in 2 offices next to each other with a door in between them, it went away. That problem went away within a month. And then never heard that again. And then the programming improved and the sales improved. Both. So but to answer your question, I haven't found them to be that much different. There are some things different, but not the things I think you were asking about. So the communication issues are pretty much the same. The kinds of people problems you have to resolve. Remember, any organization is just about the people. It's about getting good people, getting them to work together, marching together toward a common vision of the future. Strategic planning worked the same way in all of them and worked effectively. People always say, well, education is different because it has a faculty, right? And they're independent. There's something they're hard to control and manage. Well, at the TV station, we have a bunch of producers who made television shows. We produced more original programming than any station in the country. Well, they're pretty much like faculty. They have the same kind of independence. They're creative. They don't want to be told how to do things. It's not wise to tell them how to do things because you're asking them to be creative, right? So it's not wise to, but you still need to manage things within a budget. Then I ran a technology company. Well, it's full of computer software engineers. They're exactly like faculty. Okay, everyone's got their own opinion about what's right, and they're sure they're correct. And again, they're creative people who are on the edges of discovery. Maybe it's not exactly the same. They're discovering new ways of doing things, new tools, new ways of processing information, rather than discovering knowledge and information itself. But still, it's a creative process, and so even that mix, which people think is so much different, really I found not to be that much different. Yeah.
How much, one question I have is about cultures of organization, the culture of an organization. From your perspective as a leader, how much effect or how much of an impact can you have on the culture of an organization?
That's a tough question, because some days I think hardly any. Other days I think, well, if you don't have an impact on the culture, you're doomed to suffer with the culture that's there. So you better figure out how to have an impact on the culture. But I think the way to impact the culture of an organization is a team process. I don't think one person can do it, not even the leader. Now the leader can start a chain reaction, maybe that'll do it, but I don't think I can affect culture by myself. But if you use these principles to get people to talk about, okay, just like the crisis situation, first you said, accept the problem. Okay, so if we accept the problem, we have a cultural issue, that would be step number 1. And then a group of people, a team of people, as broad a team as possible, helping them to understand we have this issue, collecting ideas, getting feedback, okay, what would be the way that we want to change the culture, get as many people involved in that together. And then I found that trying to change a culture by fiat, by ordering it down, I've never seen that work. Never. you get the feedback loop working, get people talking about it, that'll change it somewhat by itself. But the way that most changes culture is by getting people to do it across the organization, do it sideways. So I'll give you an example here at the college from our past. And so, if you were here maybe, and Adrian, you will remember, we had a terrible time, it's a number of years ago, it must be 6, 7, even 8 years ago now, with the student culture on campus. I'm talking about undergraduates, mostly living on the ones living on campus, being just downright mean to each other, saying nasty things. It was effective. It wasn't just on our campus. It was in the culture. They were bringing it from the high schools. There were websites where you could go on and anonymously say these terrible things about name people and call in names and say they did these horrible things, whether it's true or not. I realize there's still some of those out there, but there's this one called Juicy. I don't know if anybody remembers. And it was really horrible. So it caused us to talk. We need a culture on campus to be more civil, right? We need people to be nice. We should be supporting each other and helping each other. So we started talking about that and recognizing the problem. But it came out as negative, like we have these problems. We need to stop doing this to each other. And it didn't change anything. It didn't work because you're just kind of lecturing. You're just saying, So when we then changed the conversation, and this was by talking about it, getting feedback and learning from what worked and what didn't work and kind of being positive before, when we changed it to not talking about the negative, but talking about the kind of culture we want to be, not the kind of culture that we were upset about, but the kind of culture we wanted to be, instead of the kind of culture we didn't want to be, and got people talking about that, that was the first step. And we started to see a little bit of movement that way. That was still limited until the students took on the responsibility to fix it. In other words, the students, who in this organization are down here, right? The students started talking directly to each other about the kind of culture they expected on campus, the kind of culture, they wouldn't even talk about, this is the culture. They would describe a culture, the culture they wanted to be, but say, it's not just the culture we wanted, it is the culture. So get on board. If you do things that are inconsistent with this, I don't know if you're part of our family. And out of that grew the Lasell values to live by that you see posted around campus. The students created that out of that experience. And there's no question in my mind that changed the student culture on campus. No, I couldn't do it. My talking about it didn't do anything, especially when I talked about it in terms of what not to do. Maybe when I switched and started talking about what we do want to be, maybe that helped a little, but not that much. I think it was really when the students taught each other how they want to behave, the kind of culture they want, that's what changed. And so I think the answer to your question is cultural change requires a village. It requires teams of people to be dedicated, to agree upon what they want the culture to be, and what they see as being a positive, productive culture, and that's how culture changes. Yeah, a leader can start that process, can encourage people to do that. A leader can model what you want, right? That can be beneficial. I don't think it's probably even necessary, but it's not sufficient. They can need more than that. Yeah?
Those are the example you gave about the drinking at lunch as a culture change that you made.
Well, that's a very, I guess you could say that. I described it as if it was just me, but it wasn't just me. Without the support of other people in the organization, I don't think I would have been able to get away with it. I was new, I was young. I didn't have any experience in that industry when I took over, or very little experience in that industry when I took over. I knew something about running companies, but I didn't know a lot about the broadcasting industry. I had some experience because I'd worked in a cable company before. But so other people in the organization outside of the sales department were on board. They were on board with me, right? So it wasn't just me. We were all standing up and saying, "Look, you have to do this. We have to change this." Okay. In fact, those other people who had been in the organization a long time, they had felt that way a long time, but didn't feel empowered to say it. They had never said anything to sales about it. They wanted to, but they never felt empowered or able or free to say it. So yeah, I set it in motion because I gave them the license to, along with me, say it. In this case now, the head of sales, who was the worst offender, yeah, I had to, I sat in an office with him privately and told him, to his face, if this happens, you're out. And by the way, I think it also saved his life because he never drank again. And he was an old timer who kind of was going through the motions, and he was renewed. His performance went back up to what it was, beyond what it was when he was a young man. It was a very interesting situation, and I think a lesson for all of us. People say, a change will cause all these negative consequences. It's not necessarily true. You have to balance. Sometimes it will cause negative consequences, but you have to balance it against what the positives will be, and you have to make judgments. And sometimes those judgments will be correct, and sometimes they won't. But even if they're not, it's still worth doing because then you get a reaction, and you can learn from it. You get feedback, and the organization learns, and you can adjust. So that would be an error of commission, right? Make a judgment that's incorrect. That would be an error of commission, and you'd be able to correct it. And that correction will make you stronger than you were before you made the error. Anybody else? Thank you very much for allowing me to come this evening. I hope it was informative and useful for you as you go forward in your professional lives.
Very important. Thank you so much.